So one of the most undoubtedly giant releases, I think we can probably all agree, coming out, I guess probably after Zelda, is the brand new video game known as Final Fantasy XVI, directed by Yoshi P and created by a team of people who seem to really know what they're doing based off their track record of games. Um, I think it's really exciting. I think everyone should be kind of a little bit excited about it if you are even remotely interested in, you know, RPGs in general. I think it looks really, really cool. But it actually prompted us all to think on the old DDNet Slack about what the moments are that we would define as extremely Final Fantasy, the best moments from Final Fantasy that we hold near and dear. Because there's always that fear with a new Final Fantasy that's taking a new direction, is that it's going to lose some of that magic. But I think, barring like one or two of them for me, they all have had moments where I've been like, oh yeah, that's good. I like that. So, to get started, Matt, what's your defining sort of like Final Fantasy moment? What's the one that you think about when you think about Final Fantasy for you?
Yeah, my very favorite one, and I've kind of gone through this again because of the Pixel Remaster series. So I've been playing through
Mm.
a bunch of the Final Fantasies, the old ones, again, yet again. I don't know how many times I'll keep replaying them. I guess as long as Square Enix keeps releasing them. But yeah, for me, the very my very favorite Final Fantasy moment of all is Final Fantasy IV, where Dark Knight Cecil goes up the mountain, um, and kind of faces off against himself and he's reborn as a paladin. So he goes from being that kind of tool of the vicious empire to becoming that virtuous kind of knight. And that moment, for me, it's just an incredible bit of
It's phenomenal.
storytelling. Yeah, like if you think
It's
about it, it
really
was the
good.
first Final Fantasy on the Super Nintendo, so it was like the first of that next era for Final Fantasy, and they come out with this just incredible piece of storytelling where you go through the rebirth and you have that moment where you kind of face off against your mirror and you're reborn as that level one paladin, so you've gone through like 10, not 10 hours, maybe it was 10 hours, depends how fast you play,
For
but
me as a child,
you
it
you
was. Yeah.
you go through you go through a lot of gameplay to get to that point. You level your character up very carefully. He's up to a very high level and very powerful, and he's reborn as a level one character and kind of very weak, but now he's on a noble quest. And just that moment is just, it sticks in your brain as a really
I think
great piece of just storytelling. And for me, that is what Final Fantasy is about. So yeah, that's definitely my favorite Final Fantasy moment of all.
I think it's actually really cool because the old games kind of get left out of discussion quite a lot, and I think people forget that four is actually really, really good. Because I was going to say one of my first ever moments as a child playing a Final Fantasy game was the four remake on the GBA,
Oh, the
and
3D
hearing
one.
the red.
Mm.
No, the GBA one, which is just it's a
Oh, the GBA one.
port.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yep,
they're
yep,
showing your
yep.
age there.
Yeah, with the Rubicante stuff that they added at the end for fun. Um, but the first scene where they're on the ship, the airship, and the Red Wings theme is playing. And as a kid, I'm like, oh my God, it's like Star Wars. It's cool. I like the music. And then I found out when I was older that they all stole that from Mars by Holst. So I was like, okay, that's why it sounded like that. So I think that's actually like, four is full of great moments. And I mean, this is my little call to action for everyone who's not played four. Go out and get it because it does hold up and it
Well,
is really good.
Four's a really complex game in a lot of ways in terms of its story because it has so many characters kind of coming in and leaving as well. Like
It's heartbreaking when you
even
don't have the ones that you love.
yeah, even to this day, RPGs are generally the rule is the party that you have early on is kind of the party you stick with. But four kept kind of taking characters in and dropping them out, having them die as such, and then bringing new
Oh, do
characters
they
in, and
die?
it was just yeah, if they die, no, spoilers. Can you do spoilers for a game that's like 40 years old? But yeah, it was just a really complex kind of use of characters and party narrative, which was really quite epic, and it does definitely, like you say, hold up today because it is still in a lot of ways very unique in terms of the way it tells its story. I can't think of many other
I just think
games that
it's
just have party members come and go like Final Fantasy IV does.
even how early it was as well, because that game was made before I was born. and
Mm.
like it's still really bloody good and well written, and the translation isn't really a problem. Like I don't remember it being a problem in the GBA. I know the original had a bit of issues, but
Yeah, four's the
I
Spoony Bar
assume now
game,
that's
isn't
all
it?
being
Yes,
four is the
force the
Spoony
Spoonie
Bard
Bar
game.
Yeah.
I
They
didn't
kept
know
that
why it
in
was
now
funny though,
since
because I just thought it was a good line. I thought it was a good line.
yeah, it works.
I don't care.
It's just this like it's this grandpa insult, right? It works as this
It
old guy's
yeah.
insulting this dude. It I like it. I think it's great, and
This man
it's
has
good they
never said a
kept it.
swear in his life.
Yeah, he's really pissed off because his like daughter's died because of this guy, but he can't swear. He's too polite, so he just calls him a spoony bard. It's great. I'm so glad they've kept that. I've never felt the need to retranslate that line because it's a good line.
No, there needs to be a
Great line.
remake where he's all like boomeristic now and jaded on life, and young people don't know what they have, and he needs to be that aggression in a remake.
I just need to say horrible slurs about minorities to be truly realistic.
Needs to be the Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy 4 edition. Dark Souls your way
No,
through the
stop it,
game.
because I would love that.
I
No,
would
I would
do.
love that. Stop it.
They really should do a Stranger of
No,
Paradise for
just
every
do
Final
it.
Fantasy
Okay,
game.
Final
Every
Fantasy.
Final Fantasy game needs a Stranger of
You have no
Paradise
idea
remake.
how much I would love that for Final Fantasy X. I would simply poop my pants.
It's like an extremely muscular dude punching Sin in the face.
As hard as he can, repeatedly.
Okay. So Alan, speaking of Final Fantasy X, I'm pretty sure that's going to be one of your moments.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but it is a game that came out literally 21 years ago, 22 years ago, whatever.
You can spoil it.
I think
There's no
I'm going to
there's a
spoil it.
big spoiler alert on this podcast. So
Yeah, I
go ahead,
guess that's a
spoil
fair
away.
point.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the realization that you're playing a ghost, I think that's pretty neat. Every game should have a moment where you realize you're playing a ghost. I think that's just fun and interesting
Oh,
and
so not
cool.
the laugh scene. I thought the laugh scene was going to be
No,
your moment, Alan.
no, because you're going to make fun of it, and I'm going to bring it up because I don't want to waste my time on childish behavior like that,
That's so
Matthew.
funny because in any other medium, like in a film or a novel, the main character being a ghost the whole time, it's like a bad twist. So how does it work in Final
This
Fantasy
owns because you have no idea. Because you don't know, because you think you're just from the future. It's just great. I think it's wonderful. It's such a weird rug pull because then you realize, oh wait, when I win the game, it's not just like
But that
player leaving the
when you
world;
think
it's
about
the
it,
main character leaving the world.
that when you think about it, that reflects really badly on Yuna though, because like,
Because she chose a ghost.
well, there's that scene which is they go swimming in the pool together, which is quite obviously a metaphor for a very different thing. That kind of makes her a necrophile, right?
No, but like no, but Bill Murray got his dick sucked in Ghostbusters by a ghost, so like it's fine.
If it's good for Bill Murray, it's good for Yuna.
Oh,
This
that
is what I've
line
been
does not
saying for
apply in
years.
any other circumstance.
Stupid. Yeah, that's a great moment though. I really enjoy that game. That game is full of wonderful moments. Also, just killing Seymour and then having him come back every second, like hour of the game and
He
be like,
comes
"I'm
in.
back again." It's like, did we kill
Yeah,
you last time? And he
we
was like,
killed
"No,
you.
not entirely."
I love that
He's back
Wakka's
again, but he's got less arms.
It also has that scene where Riku takes the swimsuit thing off.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a good
Knowing that
scene.
she's 15, it's quite a lot.
Yeah, but we remember
Not
we're all
okay.
very young
Not
back
okay.
when the game came out, so it was okay.
Yeah, but
was it Wakka's a character that just throws
Oh, but
volleyball at people, and that's just his whole role for the whole game.
and being a massive KKK racist
What?
for no reason.
Oh
That's
yeah,
actually
he
my
was a
favorite. Is the
racist. I forgot he was a racist.
I know I really love the part where he's consoling Riku, whose hometown is just blown up, by saying, "Boom, like happy fireworks show, yeah." I take it back. That's my favorite moment of that game. That's the best one. That's phenomenal. I forgot about it. Yeah. There you
Speaking
go.
of forgetting about things, Alan, how often do you think about Kimari?
Who?
That is the most perfect way to talk about that character because absolutely nobody remembers him, even though
Yeah.
he has like the most horrible scene in the whole game. And yeah, he goes through serious trauma, that guy, but everyone's like, who? It's
I love
great.
that there's a character in Final Fantasy X who's just role his role among the fan base is just to be forgotten.
As he should. Moving on.
Moving on.
Harvard.
Harvard. Yeah, pick a scene before we.
Pokemon gets brought up again. It's too much attention.
So this is a bit of a cliche in the Final Fantasy series now, but I love all those moments when a character who started off being your ally then comes back as a villain and you need to fight them as a boss. And I think the game that does this the best is Tactics. I don't know if this counts, but there's quite a few characters in Tactics who like start off as your friends, but then because of various political things, you have to fight them as a boss. And it's cool because they're kind of like support characters for you when you're just learning the game. They're really strong, so you rely on them, and then they leave your party, and then you have to fight them, and you're like, oh no, this guy's really strong. How do I beat him that I was just relying on before? It's just such an interesting strategic moment, and it works really well in the context of the narrative as well. I think Final Fantasy sometimes
you're talking about tactics, right? Not
no,
advanced.
yeah, the PS1 original
Yeah, the original,
versus Tactics, yeah.
Yeah, good game.
That,
Excellent. Very smart.
yeah,
Brainy,
Tactics
brainy.
Advance actually
My
also
favorite-
does this too, but that it's a good trope.
Yeah, absolutely. You're
I,
totally right.
um,
Like Tactics is a brilliant game in general. Um, Way smarter than I think people remember it as. Excuse me, people remember it as a really good game. And great tactics, but I don't know if people remember it as being like super, super, super smart. But it is.
I mean, it has my favorite ever quote from Final Fantasy, which is, "If the punishment for crime is a fine, it's only a crime for the poor."
I know.
I
That's
think
like,
that's a image hack. I don't think someone actually says that.
No, that's
are
that's
you
in the
sure?
game,
No,
I
it's
think.
definitely in there.
Oh,
I remember it
Yeah.
being there, unless it's like this Shazam moment where everybody's like,
there might have been this meme where a bunch of leftist quotes were being inserted into the game for fun, like just on like fake
Oh,
screenshots. But it
I've
also
been
does sound like
incepted.
something that exists in that game.
I 100% have a memory of that quote being in the game, but it has been a very long time, and I could be Shazamming it where I've just been. I've allowed myself to be convinced that it's in there, but I could have sworn it was a genuine quote.
Maybe it's from a superior version, advanced.
No,
Now,
no, it's in.
now
It's
I'm going to
from
have to
Final
play it
Fantasy.
now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I'm
think
pretty
it's
sure it's
taken from it.
there. Yeah, I'm going to have to
Well,
No,
play the
you're
game
gonna
that's
again
be
good
now.
able
luck.
to say the
Everyone play
line because
Final
it
Fantasy
doesn't
Tactics.
exist in game.
Yeah,
It doesn't exist in the game apparently, but it
it
does. But it doesn't. I
It does
don't
in our
know. I
hearts.
can't believe anyone else. In the soul of our hearts.
I feel like it's like, like the end gene or whatever, end gain, a Macca's like ScoMo, like doing this shit like in Macca's kind of thing. Like it's fake, but like
We
we all
all
believe
collectively
it's
agree it
real.
happened. Yes.
Yeah, we all
Yes.
collectively agree that it's actually happened. Yeah,
Speaking of Final Fantasy Tactics,
I
Trent,
mean,
what's your favorite Final
yeah.
Fantasy moment?
Yeah,
Here we go.
Well,
what's it gonna be?
well, it's the snowball scene. Now everyone fights me on this and picks on me, but it is good storytelling. It's a good introductory like way to like isolate you from what the main game will eventually be and teach you tactics. And it's fun. Like, why can't more games be like that?
I genuinely love Tactics Advance. Like, I I don't get. I think it's hard because Final Fantasy Tactics original was so good that it's hard for the rest of the series to live up to it. But Tactics
I don't
Advance was an excellent game.
I don't think anybody has a bad thing to say about Tactics Advance though. Like,
Oh, they do. They do.
really?
Yeah. Because it's not right. Like it's not the sequel to
Yeah,
I mean,
FFG.
I know,
because
Like
it's
it's
not
not.
a real Ivalice game. It's like a virtual world Ivalice game,
Yeah.
and it's
I know that
teenagers.
I mean,
I know the DS one got a lot of heat because it was basically just a retread of Tactics Advance, and it wasn't nearly kind of
Oh yeah, A2 was a little
enough
bit
of an
stupid.
evolution. But I thought everybody liked Tactics Advance. I thought it was just one of those games everyone agreed on.
Well, then re-release it.
no.
They should
They
they
do
should
not
do
like
like a
that game.
remake with like the new 2D, 5D art style thing and make a like proper tactics advanced or
Hard disagree.
like remake. That would be
They should
fun.
keep it exactly the same. You
No,
can't see
no,
me
they don't need
pointing my
to-
finger at the
the
screen right
cheap.
now. I'm pointing at Square Enix. Keep it the same.
They do not need to mess with that one. They don't need to HD 2D it, I agree. They just need to re-release it. Just put it on the Game Boy
Just
Virtual Console.
yeah,
It's
on
there.
the Game Boy
Do
Store.
it. Yeah, just do it. Stop making us emulate it,
Nike.
Square Enix. Yeah,
Don't change
we
the
want
font.
to play it legit. Don't change the font. Yes, exactly.
So
Oh,
what's
please
annoying? I
God,
only
the
have a
font.
Game Boy Macro or a Game Boy Advance, so I don't have an SP, and the Game Boy Advance is way too tiny, like old and crappy screen to see things on, and the Game Boy Micro, like it's like I'm way too old to like play on that. I thought it would be cool and like hip, and I'm like, yes, I'll buy that instead of an SP, and
Yeah,
yeah,
how big is the Game Boy Micro? It's like the palm of your hand, isn't
It's
it?
tiny.
No, it's
it's
Yeah.
smaller than
Screen.
that.
Smaller than that.
The screen is tiny. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's a very
tiny,
small console.
tiny.
it's
It was
like
designed
smaller
to
than
be
Very
a
like
cool
a.
though.
credit card.
It was basically designed to be like a keychain thing. You just
Did you say
kind
the
of.
size of a credit card?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's so small. What?
It's unnecessarily small. It's unplayably small.
Just because they could doesn't mean they should.
It was
This is what
more
I've
a
been saying for
fashion
years.
statement than a. It was
Nintendo
more a
has for
fashion.
years decided that instead of having their games be playable, they just say, "Yeah, you can like wear it."
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was a style thing rather than a console to play. Anyway, moving on.
It was
Um,
the style of the time.
Squinting
here's a
style at the time.
here's
Yeah.
another scene. Final Fantasy VI, the opera scene.
Opera. Yeah, there we
Yeah,
go.
Yeah.
you
Unit
got it.
7. It's really good.
Yeah.
I love
How
that
good
Final
was
Fantasy
it?
VI is full of moments where people like feel are genuinely beautiful. Because that's not even the only one that has the reputation.
No, the game's just really good. I mean, you
It
can't
is
ever go
like
past suplexing a train. Like, it's just really strong.
yeah, in general, it's like, and again, it's pretty complex in terms of the way it does its characters and stuff because it has branching storylines and you're constantly kind of going off with different groups doing their thing. Um, but yeah, for me, that opera scene was just an absolute standout moment. Um, and one of the reasons, I guess, that I don't know, I'd be a little bit concerned if they were to ever remake Final Fantasy VI. Like if they were to do a full remake of Final Fantasy VI, they could do that opera scene and make it really incredible, right? But at the same time, would it be, if that makes sense? Because part of the appeal of it, I think, was the fact that they managed to somehow represent opera in that 16-bit form before they had voice acting
It's
and
just
all those things to
impressive.
use. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
impressive the way they thought about how to make opera work on the format, if that makes sense. So a remake would possibly undermine that a bit.
Coming now in Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy VI.
That being said, I would definitely like to see that
No,
opera
I would
turned
play
into a
that.
full opera. I would go and see the full opera. Umetsu should just like
No,
do the whole thing. Like he should just make the whole opera and then people go and watch the opera. That would be
I
good.
really want to watch Jack walk into the opera scene and then say, "This sucks," and then put on like Limp Bizkit.
He's he's he
I
was
want
such a
that.
troll, is Jack.
He's such a good character. I love how those like Final Fantasy tweets that were all like, "Pick your favorite mage, pick your favorite warrior." It was always like three like really famous characters from Final Fantasy, and then Jack as well was there.
And then Jack is the ultimate troll character. He's great.
He's the
He's a
best part
moment.
of any Final
He,
Fantasy game. He's
he's a
tied
moment all
with
by
Zack
himself.
there. Actually, no, there's on to my big one as well is the best character in that entire Final Fantasy series of 7 games and movies, whatever. 100% the end of Crisis Core, phenomenal. Actually phenomenal. One of the best
Oh,
endings of an RPG I think ever.
I really need to
doesn't
play
make you
that.
cry. Did
I
it not
really need to
make you
play that.
It
cry,
did.
Alan? It was cry. It's
It did.
seriously tear jerking shit.
It's really hard. Yeah, it makes me sad.
It hits you right in
The
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 feels. It
combination of the
does.
music
Yeah.
and then the way that the game falls apart around you, and you're like, oh, you're not living. Sad.
That's oh, you're not living. Yeah, that moment is definitely a sads. It's
It's really
but
well done. It's such
and
a good
actually
moment.
but in all seriousness, the fact that they kind of finish with that, because generally speaking, Final Fantasy is kind of uplifting, right? It's like save the world, save the universe, get the girl, all those kinds of things. But this one was like,
No, no, you
it's
die.
done. Yeah, it's all
You're
over.
done,
You
son.
know, you just spent 20 hours or whatever with this dude, and he's gone, mate. So yeah, it's
You know, the
definitely
worst thing is some crybaby weirdo is going to be pretending he's you for the next like 30 years,
so
and it's gonna
yeah,
suck.
yeah. You're right. That is definitely a moment in Final Fantasy.
It's so bizarre to me that
Really,
Final Fantasy VII compilation was just Final Fantasy VII making an unexpectedly large amount of money, and Square Enix going, "We're going to make everything," and they just happened to make Crisis Core incredible.
yeah.
Well,
And they're
they've
like,
had
oh shit, we actually made a good game.
Whoops,
yeah they
that wasn't the
they had
plan.
they've had some dodgy moments like Dirge Cerberus
Dirge of
was
Cerberus, Advent Children
not a
also does
great
What
not
are
hold
you
game.
up.
talking about? No, that game rocks. That's phenomenal. It's
Uh,
art. You see how many belts that man has? That's more belts than I can count. That's a lot of belts. I love that. Good for him.
I
It's
mean, I
also
love
the
Vincent. Vincent's
unironic
great,
character design
but
phrase too, where the belts were cool, whereas now the belts are just a joke.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Vincent. I liked Vincent as a character in Final Fantasy VII, but they did not do my boy good justice with Dirge Cerberus
What are
at
you
all.
talking about? He has so many cool moments in Dirge of Cerberus, like when he's
I'm
sitting
looking
in the
forward.
window.
I am
Like,
looking forward to him showing up in the remake. That's going to be an interesting
yeah,
moment.
that'd be cool.
Dirge of
Yeah.
Cerberus is like the Shadow the Hedgehog of the Final Fantasy VII series.
I love that. Yes, 100%. The most accurate you've ever been in any situation. That's phenomenal.
Speaking
All downhill from here.
speaking of Final Fantasy VII remake though, that game has its fair share of moments as well. Um, for me, the dance scene in that game is just spectacular. I don't know. Has anybody actually played that other than me here? Or
Yeah,
No.
am I
no,
the
I
only one
have.
that
I didn't mind it. I didn't mind it.
it's
I thought it was
good,
cool.
wasn't it? Same writer as
That game's,
Stranger of Paradise, and you can tell.
yeah, you can tell because he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, he's just
Wonderful.
he just likes to kind of rip these games apart, which is great. Now, what I really liked about Final Fantasy VII in remake in general is kind of the way it, because for the original Final Fantasy VII was very deterministic. You know, it was all about fate and all those kinds of things. The storyline, and it was that kind of very traditional Final Fantasy approach to storytelling. Final Fantasy VII really remake really undermines a lot of that. Kind of subverts it. It kind of puts a different twist on it. So even though it's the same general storyline, the way it goes about it is very different and very thought provoking. Thought it was anyway. So yeah, it was great, and they made Jesse a major
I think,
character too, which was a great thing.
I think the
Jesse's my
realization that we're
favorite. I
actually
love
doing something
Jesse.
different.
Jesse's the best Final Fantasy character.
She just exists.
She's permanently thirsty, like
She
24/7.
exists to die.
She, she exists to die. I hope they
Yeah.
need to find some way of her not dying. Like, I don't know how they can do it, but they need to do it because they need to bring her back because she adds a very important quality to the game, which
What?
is just
Horniness.
thirst. Yeah. That's a very horny
In her
game. Like
cheeks.
Final Fantasy VII Remake is surprisingly horny. The whole thing is like constantly have these little moments where things are just like thirsty.
It's
I
a
love it.
lot.
Yeah, it's a very thirsty game.
I was thinking as well, another moment of low key, this like hype is running around in that one city in 12 and shouting, I am Barsch von Ronsenberg, fear me, while playing as the tiniest boy of all time who sucks. And it makes me really happy. Like I think about that scene a lot. And for those of you who haven't played 12, you play as an absolute dweeb and he sucks and he's awful.
That's the
And
consensus for
Barsch
most
is
protagonists,
the
isn't it?
coolest.
What I
No, but
love
like
about Final Fantasy 12 is like the
he's awful.
the main protagonist is Van, and he is an absolute dweeb. But
And he's not
even
the
the
main
game,
protagonist.
even the game realizes that he's a dweeb. So like after the first hour, he becomes like this background character that's not important at all. He's just kind
Oh,
of
we've got all the really
there.
important power makers here. We've got Ash, we've got
Yeah,
Barsh, we've got
you've got a
Balthier.
prince.
Also, Van's here, and Penrose here too. I don't know, they're just here.
Just here, they're
Uh,
just tagging along. It's great.
it's really
Yeah,
strong. More games should have just characters that do not matter at all.
and just tag
Like
along.
they're
Yeah, I know.
just random guys, just little dudes.
Hate
It's
Sith.
like Ricky in Xenoblade. We want more random little guys.
But the thing is, like Final Fantasy 12 is a really good game. I really like it. Like when I list my favorite Final Fantasy games, it's generally up the top. But weirdly enough, that one, I don't think I have a particularly favorite scene, if that makes sense.
Not as many like
Like
wow
it all just kind of rolls
moments for
together
sure.
into this really good game. I love it from start to finish, but there's not really any particular scene that I love from it.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I really enjoy the chats that Ash and uh Bash have. I think they're really good. But that's like again, there's no specific scene that I think of there. It's just a nice scene. Also, the fact that the
Yeah,
opening cutscene is as sick as it is. I think
yeah,
this also
yeah.
goes out to every single opening cutscene of every single Final Fantasy game. Because I don't know about you, but watching like Sin destroy Xanakin at the beginning of 10, phenomenal. Watching the beginning war bit that is just again Star Wars for 12. Watching 13's cutscene in the opening, which is probably the only good bit of 13.
Pushing the
And
car in
then
15.
watching
13 is a
15.
very good game. How dare you? How
Uh,
dare you, Alan? Naughty. In the
is
corner.
this, yeah, I'm
Get
in for
in the
that for
corner.
that game, and yeah, I'll stay in the corner.
Get in the corner.
Can we also make
Where is
a?
my Final Fantasy 13 remake? Put
Can
it
I
on the
ask you,
Switch,
Matt,
please.
what
It needs
because
one.
I don't
I'm
know
saying
this
that much.
firsthand, and I'm guessing that no one else here knows this firsthand, and also most people listening will not know this firsthand. What was the feeling of getting to the point in Final Fantasy 13 when the world opened up? Like, was it freeing? Was it everything you ever wanted?
No, it was exactly kind of the opposite. That became the drag of the game for me.
Really?
Yeah, that was a real job to get through because I was enjoying the fact it was linear. Um, because I mean, people forget that Final Fantasy X, for example, was a super linear game as well.
I mean, all of them are. Seven's fairly linear. Eight's
Yeah,
fairly
yeah.
linear.
I mean, but in the sense that Final Fantasy 13 was a corridor, a literal corridor, which people always
Hmm.
complain about, that you're just moving through just a straight line. You do the same in Final Fantasy 10. So
It's
I
well
was
done
in
in 10. That's the difference.
Ten
I
is a
was in,
twisty line.
I was
It's a
enjoying the
twisty
fact
line.
that you did that. It didn't bother me. I was moving from cutscene to cutscene. I was enjoying the characters. I was enjoying the general pacing of the thing. The revelations were coming at a good rate. I was making progress at a good pace. Things were happening in a way that I was enjoying. And then you get to this big open bit, and it's like, okay, well now I'm just going to spend 20 hours running around fighting dudes and not making progress. And then after you get past that bit, then it goes back to the linear approach where things start to happen at a good rate again. So it just became this moment or this chunk of time that was chewing up, um, and you weren't making progress through the stuff that you were playing to that point. The whole game was meant to be this linear narrative thing, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. So for me, that was the down moment of the whole game. I
That's
couldn't get
really
out of that bit fast enough.
That's an interesting take. So my peeve about JRPGs, and Final Fantasy is very guilty of this, is when people tell you to play something and then you get about 20 hours in and they're like, oh, it's just about to open up. So when I was playing Final Fantasy 13, I think I was playing it with the mindset of the the linear bit is like the narrative prologue to set things up. And then when I get to the open bit, that's when the game really starts to open up.
If if they want to do an open bit, I have no problem inherently with the game being open in its design. Like Final Fantasy 15, for example, is an open world game, and I got along with it just fine. Um, but for yeah, if you need to be consistent, either
Hmm.
have that linear story or have that open experience. One or the other. Don't go, okay, so this is going to be a linear experience for 20 hours, and then all of a sudden it's going to be this open thing for 20 hours, and then you're going to go back to a linear story for the next 10 and then finish the game. Just make it a linear
Just
game from
stick to your
start to
guns.
finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My issue with
If
13
you
was
want to
like
then if you
when
want to
this
then go
sorry.
and do if you want to then go and do an open thing, then great, fine. Make it a sequel. Do, Final Fantasy 13 2 or whatever. So yeah,
Yeah,
I really like Final Fantasy 13, but I couldn't stand that open bit.
I was constantly thinking, just when does this game start? Because with seven, the game starts. Well, you feel like it starts when you leave Midgard, right? When you get to the overworld, and then you can go around and do stuff. It's probably the reason why I also can't really get into remake is because my brain thinks Midgard is the opening. So for me, Final Fantasy 13 had a 35-hour-long opening. I was like, this is too long. When does the game start?
Yeah, and I mean, they didn't do themselves favors by still having like new elements of the game introduced 20 hours in, and you're still doing tutorials and stuff all that time. They did kind of drip feed that stuff out a bit slowly, but again, for me, the only reason I was so invested in Final Fantasy 13 was because of the characters and the narrative. I found it all fascinating and great, and I enjoyed the characters. And Vanille was the best character of all time and stuff.
You know, Matt, I'm really glad that you found joy in that game because you may have been the only one, and I think that's
No, it's
lovely.
been it is part of the
I think
Final
that's
Fantasy.
joyous.
No, I'm telling you right now, this is the Final Fantasy trend. The game comes out, and this has been the case since Final Fantasy X. The game comes out, and people are generally critical of it at the time. But then over time, people reassess their opinions of it, and a decade later, it becomes this game that people realize is quite good. So that happened with Final Fantasy X. That happened with Final Fantasy
I
12.
tried.
That happened with That is happening with Final Fantasy 13 now. You go and look, and there's a lot of people that would like to see that thing come out as a
15's
collection
gonna
on the
be a
Switch
hard
or
sell.
whatever. 15 is going to be the next one. It will. I'm pretty sure, give it another 8 or 9 years when they do a re-release or whatever it'll be reassessed as being a pretty good game overall.
I
That's my
want
opinion
to
anyway.
believe you, but I don't know if that's going to happen.
And I'm pretty sure Final
But
Fantasy 16 will be the same. It'll come out, everyone will hate it, it'll be the worst thing
well,
ever, blah, blah,
everyone's going
blah,
to
blah,
hate
blah.
16.
And
Yeah.
then 20 years later, it'll be like, oh, this is the best thing ever. It's gonna happen. Guaranteed. I'm
what's so
predicting it
funny?
now. Predicting it
The
now. It's gonna piss off people, especially the hardcore fans. It's gonna piss them off big time, and then they'll love it a decade later.
Alan, when you were saying that 16 is coming out, I think just living through the period where 15 was in development, my brain was like, nah, it's not coming out. It's not going to come out.
I think that's fair
It
enough.
hasn't been 15 years yet.
Yeah. We haven't had Versus 13 2 yet.
We haven't had Crystal Chronicles 3.
To be honest, I'm
Oh.
kind of expecting Final Fantasy 16 to be more like The Last Remnant 2, to be honest.
I
You
want it
just
to be
like the
more
guy,
That's the
don't
vibe
you?
I'm getting.
You
That's
just
the
like that
vibe I'm
guy.
getting. Yeah, the director, same director.
It is, I will admit,
Real
kind of weird to
OGs.
see it go back to fantasy. I feel like Final Fantasy has for so long been this weird, bizarre sci-fi thing that it's weird seeing it go back to original fantasy.
I like that. I'm glad they did that, to be honest. It's nice. Um, I don't know. I'm very much pumped for Final Fantasy 16, but I do think it is going to be a significant diversion from what we've seen from Final Fantasy in the past, which is the point. I mean, Final Fantasy was always kind of the series that Square Enix experimented with. They took big risks with to do different things each time. That's always been the case. Like Final Fantasy 8 was a huge change from Final Fantasy 7, pissed a lot of people off at the time. Final
Oh, I
Fantasy
love
10
8.
was a
What
different thing.
bizarre game.
Final Fantasy 12 did like really different things with the combat system, which people didn't like at the time and has since been reassessed. Final Fantasy 13 was a huge creative risk, which Alan didn't like, but people with good taste do. And I'm pretty
I
sure
like
Final
Lost
Fantasy
Odyssey,
16 will
which
be
is the real 13.
Final Fantasy 16 will be much the same. So Dragon Quest is a series that is very traditional game after game. Final Fantasy is the one where they do things and take risks, and I'm certainly expecting that with this one. I've got my fingers and toes crossed that it turns out well.
It should do.
I think so.
It's
like to
banned in
think so.
Saudi Arabia.
Is it?
Yeah. It's got gay stuff in it, probably.
That's probably it.
Without being crass, that's just, yeah, that's probably why, which is a shame. But also, suck shit, Saudi Arabia. Sorry about that.
Does that mean Final Fantasy VII Remake's banned in Saudi Arabia too?
I don't think it's got gay shit in it, does it?
The whole dance scene's gay as anything.
Oh, it's very gay, but it's not
It's
like
hugely
no
gay.
kissies. There's no kissies in it, you know what I mean?
Oh, so you're allowed to dance with other men, but you can't kiss them.
Yeah, that's illegal. Which, because that's the degradation of society. Because two men kissing is the end of the world.
Right.
Who's putting
I see.
who's putting these politics in my bloody video games?